After our father passed away and our mother remarried, Mr. Thompson insisted that she could only take one of her children with her. One day, Hero knelt before me, pleading for permission to accompany our stepfather. "Brother, you're intelligent and strong. You're perfect for farming. Without Mom's care, I won't survive," he implored. Ultimately, I decided to leave school and remain in our village. Meanwhile, Hero moved to the city with Mom to continue his education. However, once in the city, Hero became infatuated with a female live streamer named Lily. He started using his tuition money to send gifts to her, claiming it was true love. Enraged by his actions, Mr. Thompson ceased his financial support. Undeterred, Hero set his sights on the old house our father had left behind while I was away working. Hero secretly returned to the village and sold the old house. He brazenly declared that after sending another round of gifts, Lily would marry him and continue our family lineage. At that moment, I was working at a construction site, carrying bricks. Upon hearing the news, I became so angry that I suffered a heart attack, fell from a high platform, and died on impact. Even the compensation for my death was taken by Hero, who used it to send more gifts to Lily. Filled with hatred, when I regained consciousness, I found myself back on the day Hero begged me to stay in the village. This time, I pushed him away and approached Mr. Thompson directly. I thought to myself that a worthless fool like Hero didn't deserve to be Lily's top fan. The familiar voice of my younger brother, Hero, pulled me out of the darkness. The sensation of weightlessness and fear still lingered, and my body trembled. But seeing Hero's face instantly grounded me in reality. Had I been reborn? The thought made my heart race. In my previous life, it had been the same scenario. Hero, pitifully asking me to remain in the village while he followed Mom and Mr. Thompson to live a life of luxury. Hero was my twin brother, just 10 minutes younger than me, but I couldn't bear to see him endure hardship. So, I agreed. What I didn't realize was that when Hero left with Mom, my nightmare was just beginning. Initially, Mom sent me maintenance money, but the person transferring the funds became my younger brother. The allowance drastically decreased from $500 a month to $500 every 3 to 5 months. Hero claimed that Mr. Thompson's family was struggling and that was all they could offer me, but it was insufficient to cover my tuition and living expenses. Fortunately, Mr. Thompson left me an old house, providing at least a roof over my head. At a young age, I began working, but due to malnutrition, I frequently fell ill and couldn't even take the college entrance exam. Eventually, I dropped out of school. It wasn't that I didn't want to continue. I simply couldn't. Later, I discovered that Mr. Thompson's family wasn't poor at all. Hero had been living a comfortable life all along, enjoying luxury items, games, mansions, and cars. Things I could never have dreamed of. But Hero didn't appreciate any of it. He became obsessed with a female streamer, Lily, spending all his money on gifts for her, even maxing out his credit cards. When Mr. Thompson found out, he attempted to talk to Hero several times, but it was futile. Eventually, Mr. Thompson had to cancel Hero's credit cards, knowing that Hero wouldn't learn his lesson and instead targeted the old house Mr. Thompson had left me. When I discovered that Hero had sold my house, I lost my balance while working at a height and fell, resulting in fatal injuries. This time, I vowed not to let Hero take everything that was rightfully mine. I looked at Hero coldly and said, "Brother, we are both Mom's children. Let her decide." Mom gazed at both of us, clearly troubled. Hero quickly changed his approach, sweetly linking arms with Mom and saying, "Mom, you know Hero has always been smart. Even if he lives alone, he won't starve." But I couldn't agree. "I can't do it. My health is poor and I rely on you a lot. You can't leave me here alone. In my past life, I starved." Mom had always trusted Hero, but I had always helped her with housework and taken care of Hero myself when she worked. Mom knew exactly what kind of person Hero was. It wasn't easy for her to marry into a wealthy family, and if she brought along someone like me, Mr. Thompson might look down on her. It wasn't until I insisted on sending Hero away and told her I could manage on my own that she reconsidered. Hero likely anticipated Mom's decision and quickly turned his attention to Mr. Thompson. He sweetly grabbed Mr. Thompson's hand and said, "Dad, I'm very filial. Unlike my brother, who's always been antisocial and causing trouble for Mom, I promise to behave well if you take me back. I didn't expect Hero to lie and tarnish my reputation. What was worse was how intimately he addressed Mr. Thompson as Dad, which was almost nauseating. Mr. Thompson didn't know us well, having only known Mom for a short time. Mom had kept the fact that she had 2 sons hidden, revealing it only after marrying Mr. Thompson. Though Mr. Thompson was angry, he didn't bring up divorce. Instead, he decided to take only one child, likely punishing Mom for hiding the truth. Unlike Hero, I was always the quiet type, and the elders generally preferred Hero. However, what Hero didn't know was that I had overcome immense hardships. I was fully capable of using the same tactics, but I chose not to. Seeing Mr. Thompson's expression soften slightly, I quickly stepped forward and imitated Hero's tone. Dad, I've always been the one studying hard and enduring hardships. I've always helped Mom with the work. Hero has been protected, but it's time for him to learn independence. Hero glared at me fiercely, his eyes full of malice. He immediately put on a pitiful act, saying, "Brother, why are you trying to take everything from me? Haven't I given you enough since we were kids? Now I just want a home and a father, and you're doing this." Although Mr. Thompson didn't know the full truth, the exchange between Hero and me likely made him suspicious. I refused to fall into Hero's trap. Instead, I looked to Mom for support. If Hero could cry, so could I. In our childhood, no matter how hard life was or how wronged I felt, I never cried. This made me bear even more unfairness, and it seemed that Mom favored Hero more. If it weren't for Mr. Thompson possibly looking down on her, Mom might have chosen Hero without hesitation. The truth is, all this talk of family and blood relations was just everyone defending their own interests, and Mom was no exception. I already had a bigger advantage than Hero, and now I would seize the opportunity to prove myself. Hero probably never imagined that the usually non-competitive older brother would now be competing against him. I looked up at Mom with tear-filled eyes, appearing fragile and pitiful. "Mom, I'm not afraid to endure hardships with you. I just want to stay by your side forever. You know, my grades have always been excellent, and if I leave you, I'll probably drop out. Hero's different. He never liked studying. Don't worry, I'll study hard, and after I graduate, I'll make money and take care of him." Mom never mentioned Mr. Thompson's family background, so neither Hero nor I knew that he was wealthy. However, Hero had asked around and lied to me, claiming that Mr. Thompson was poor and that he just wanted to stay by Mom's side. In my past life, I didn't care about fighting for things. I thought hardship was inevitable. Since Hero loved following Mom so much, I let him go. Had I not lived 2 lives, I would still have been fooled by Hero. The idea that he couldn't live without Mom was just an excuse. Hero only wanted to enjoy the life of a rich second generation. Mr. Thompson looked at me in surprise, about to speak, but Hero beat him to it, saying, "Brother, what nonsense are you talking about? You want to live a hard life, but Dad is so successful. Are you trying to ruin him? Brother, your heart is truly wicked." After saying this, Hero turned to Mr. Thompson with a flattering tone. "Dad, please don't be mad at my brother. He's always been a big talker. I've gotten used to it over the years." Now, Hero wasn't even pretending, but his words worked in my favor. I just smiled faintly and said, "But you said we lived a hard life with Mom. I'm willing to endure hardship." As soon as I said that, Hero probably realized he had fallen into my trap. He fell silent for a moment, then quickly changed his tune, saying, "No, I just heard that Dad's life is good." I knew Hero well. Once his lies were exposed, he became incoherent. No matter what he said, it only sounded like excuses. Mr. Thompson's expression darkened as he looked at me and asked, "Are you really willing to endure hardship with us?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded and said, "Mom has worked hard for both of us her whole life. I just want to stay with her and make her suffer less." Upon hearing this, Mom smiled with relief, and Mr. Thompson nodded approvingly. Hero glared at me with malice, but I lowered my gaze to hide the dark thoughts in my eyes. In the end, Mr. Thompson decided to take me with him and left the old house for Hero. Hero knew it was a done deal, but didn't want to make things easy for me. As we were about to get into the car, he pretended to be reluctant, tightly grabbing my hand and raising his voice deliberately so that Mom and Mr. Thompson could hear. "Brother, I'm really happy for you. Just hope you don't cheat in the city. It would ruin Dad's reputation." Hero knew that Mr. Thompson liked me mainly because of my academic success. He had to hit a sore spot. If this had happened in the past, I would have panicked and tried to clarify, falling into the trap of self-defense. But now I just smiled calmly. Hero was too naive. Even if Mr. Thompson chose to believe him for now, doubt would still linger in his heart, and eventually, the truth would be revealed. Seeing that I wasn't angry, Hero gritted his teeth in frustration. He leaned in close, whispering a threat just loud enough for me to hear. "I'm telling you, you're enjoying a good life with Mom now. If you don't send me money, I'll destroy your happy life. If I can't have it, you won't either." I patted Hero on the shoulder and loudly said, "Little brother, how can you make me deceive Dad for money? We're still young. We should focus on studying." "Don't worry, I'll work while studying and make money for you." As soon as I finished speaking, the surroundings fell silent. Everyone's gaze shifted to Hero. His face turned bright red as he pointed at my nose, but he couldn't come up with a single coherent explanation. I grabbed Hero's finger and comforted him. "Brother, you have to study hard. We'll work hard together. Even though I live with Mom, you're still my brother. No matter how bad my life gets, I won't let you suffer. After all, you've been spoiled by Mom and me since you were little." Was Hero just trying to ruin my reputation in front of Mr. Thompson? Why couldn't I fight back? I was simply using his own tactics against him. Mr. Thompson looked at Hero with disappointment and let out a deep sigh before driving away. In the car, Mr. Thompson suddenly said, "How about I give Hero 10,000 won a month for living expenses?" Mom didn't protest much, but turned to me and asked, "Alex, what do you think?" I remembered in my previous life, the allowance was only 500 won a month, and I had long complained to Mom about it. Back then, I thought Mom wasn't doing well at Mr. Thompson's place, and taking Hero along probably made things harder. So I didn't say much. But now I understood. In my past life, when Mr. Thompson proposed this idea, Mom first asked Hero for his opinion. My gaze suddenly became cold. Growing up, I never claimed to treat Hero like royalty, but whenever someone else had something, even if I had to grit my teeth, I would fight to get it for him, even at the cost of sacrificing myself. I never expected Hero to hate me this much. Clenching my back teeth, I forced a smile and said, 10,000 yuan is too much. Hero is still a child, and without any family around to keep him in check, he might develop bad habits when he grows up. That would ruin him. Besides, Hero is in the village, so his expenses are low and Grandma is there to look after him. In my opinion, 500 yuan a month should be enough. Mom hesitated for a moment, looking at me with an expression of disbelief, perhaps seeing the determination in my eyes. I was still the older brother who loved Hero the most. Mr. Thompson cast an appreciative glance at me, taking advantage of the moment. I added, "Mom and Dad have already had it hard enough. I'm becoming a burden to you. I'll work hard to make money for Hero." When Mom heard this, she finally sighed with relief. After my repeated assurances and insistence, Mom and Mr. Thompson agreed to give Hero 500 yuan a month for his living expenses. When I stepped into Mr. Thompson's house, the spacious villa still left me a bit stunned. In my previous life, I only knew that Mr. Thompson's family was wealthy, and that was after I had dropped out of school and started working. It was Hero who flaunted it to me every day. Seeing all of this, my emotions were hard to calm. But in front of Mr. Thompson, I couldn't let myself seem too shocked or exaggerated. The reason Mr. Thompson canceled Hero's cards in the past was because Hero had been spending recklessly, not to mention his vanity. Mr. Thompson didn't like such children. Moreover, no matter how much he loved Mom, he could never fully accept a useless burden. So I had to prove my own worth and express my gratitude to Mr. Thompson. When I noticed that Mr. Thompson was secretly watching me, I slowly let the tears fall. Mr. Thompson asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Wiping my tears, I replied, "I thought you and Mom were living a hard life. This is too good. I can't bear to see the two of you working so hard just to make ends meet." Mr. Thompson patted my head with a satisfied smile. "Alex, you're really understanding and care about us." When Mr. Thompson motioned for someone to take me to my bedroom, I trembled as I looked around the room filled with luxury brands, something I had never dared to imagine. In my previous life, although Mr. Thompson left me the old house, Grandma lived there with me and my uncle's family moved in too. My cousin slept in what should have been my room, while my uncle and aunt had the master bedroom. I was the only one sleeping in the storage room. Unlike me, Hero had no reservations. In my past life, when he targeted the old house, he didn't hesitate to kick out my uncle's family. And at that time, I thought it didn't matter if I suffered a little. At least I could go home and have a warm meal. I had always endured, preferring to suffer myself so that others could live better. But why? After repeatedly sacrificing, did those who never gave anything still live better than me? This time, I wouldn't be so foolish. I had enough of the hardships of working on construction sites. That evening, Hero angrily called me. He shouted, "Alex Lee, why are you so vicious? You're blocking my path to becoming a rich kid. You deserve to die." I had already anticipated that Hero wouldn't let me off easily. Even though things were settled, he wouldn't let me have a moment of peace. He continued, "That old man said he would give me 10,000 won a month for living expenses. How did it turn into 500 yuan when it came out of your mouth?" Before I could respond, Hero went off on his own, ranting into the phone. I really didn't expect Mom to tell Hero the truth. It seemed that, in her heart, Hero was still her favorite. If this had been in the past, maybe I would have felt sad. I remembered that in my previous life, when I was forced to drop out of school and work on a construction site, I just wanted to buy an electric bike for commuting. So I gathered the courage to call Mom and ask to borrow money. At that time, she just coldly said, "You're already grown up. Besides, didn't Mr. Thompson leave you a house? You shouldn't be so greedy." Even after I died, Mom went so far as to help Hero escape public condemnation by claiming that I had taken my own life. I should have realized a long time ago that Mom and Hero were both selfish and self-serving. Now that I'd been reborn, I wouldn't expect anything from her anymore. The fact that she told Hero the truth was just so he wouldn't blame her later. I had to admit, playing the blame game was done well. I calmly replied to Hero, "First of all, my surname is Lee now. You can call me Alex Lee or Mr. Lee. Secondly, yes, I did this. If you don't want me to live well, why should I let you? By the way, you better focus on yourself. After all, in a few days, you won't even be able to keep the house." Unfortunately, Hero hadn't been reborn like I had. If he had, I would have spared no effort in describing all the hardships and pain I had endured in my previous life, making him slowly feel the torment. Since that wasn't possible, I let him be like a frog in boiling water. As for why Mom didn't secretly give Hero more money, I knew she didn't dare now that we were living in Mr. Thompson's house. Everything we wore and used was provided by him. Mom wasn't foolish enough to do something like that. Helping her ex-husband's son would be humiliating, and I didn't have to worry about what Mom would do. We just needed to mind our own business. What I wanted was to gain Mr. Thompson's favor. As for family and blood ties, I didn't want any of that. I only wanted money. Mr. Thompson transferred me to the best high school. Though it was already the third year of high school, I had been attending school in my hometown, where the teaching quality was somewhat lacking. As a result, my midterm exam scores weren't ideal. To my surprise, when I returned home with a nervous heart, I found that Hero was already at our house. I was a bit startled, but Hero said with an air of pride, "Hey bro, I came to see you. I heard your midterm results came out and I'm here to report my scores to Mom as well." I didn't know why, but something felt off about Hero's gaze. In the past, although his eyes always showed scheming, there was still a kind of foolishness to him. Both Mom and Mr. Thompson were there, and Mr. Thompson seemed more interested in my results. He asked me to bring out my report card. As I hesitated, Hero quickly ran over, snatched my bag, and dumped its contents onto the floor. He found the report card and handed it to Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson's face immediately darkened when he saw my significantly declining scores. At that moment, Hero looked at me triumphantly and said, "See, bro, I told you to study seriously. You insisted on cheating, but now that you're at this school, the supervision is strict, and you couldn't cheat. Now look, you've embarrassed Mom and Dad. Unlike me, even though I didn't come first in the class, I made it into the top 10. Hero proudly handed his report card to Mr. Thompson as if presenting a treasure. Mr. Thompson had a somewhat complex expression. He glanced at me, then at Hero, his eyes filled with unspoken disappointment. I was a bit curious. Hero had never been a good student, either second to last or last in class. How could he suddenly make it into the top 10? There had to be something fishy going on here. Before I could speak, Hero seemed to anticipate what I wanted to say and continued, "Mom, Dad, I know you think my brother is better than me, but I've been working hard. Don't worry, I'll get a good rank in the college entrance exam, and maybe then I can return to be with you." I never expected that Hero's real purpose for coming here was this. Mom looked at Hero, her eyes lighting up with hope, and hugged him with a look of deep affection. "You really are a good son." Then she turned to Mr. Thompson with a pleading look. "Honey, look, they are twins. You wanted the most outstanding child to help you in the future. How about this? Let's wait until their college entrance exam results come out and then decide who to keep. For now, let Hero stay at home." As Mr. Thompson seemed torn, Hero squeezed out a few tears and, in a pitiful voice, said, "Dad, you don't know. My uncle and aunt have taken over my room. Now I don't even have a space to study at night. Please, let me stay here. I won't disappoint you." With that, Hero threw a provocative glance at me. In the end, Mr. Thompson agreed to Mom's suggestion. That night, Hero entered my bedroom, looking around as if reminiscing. "Ah, I miss this place. It used to be mine. But Alex, don't think you're the only one who's been reborn." I just gave a faint smile. From the moment Hero showed up in Mr. Thompson's house, I had a hunch that he had returned from his previous life. Otherwise, given his childhood courage, he would never have dared to do this. Hero slowly walked toward me and said, "My dear brother, only you, a fool, wouldn't use the situation with Uncle and Aunt to your advantage. You let them bully you. I'm telling you, my goal was never that broken house. I'm here to take back what belongs to me. Do you think your 2 lifetimes of memories will help you drive me away? Fool." Hero didn't care how I responded. Maybe he enjoyed seeing the dumbfounded expression on my face. After boasting for a while, he left. My expression gradually shifted from shock to a smirk. That's right, I did it on purpose. I knew Hero had returned. I had heard that he had accidentally fallen from the 2nd floor of the school and, when he woke up, was mumbling in a delirious state about giving Lily gifts and claiming to be the rich 2nd generation. From that moment, I knew Hero had returned, so I deliberately failed my exams to make him think I was struggling with the new environment. Besides, in my previous life, I had dropped out before even taking the college entrance exam while he came back with memories of our past lives. So he was confident. But Hero forgot one thing. I didn't drop out because I couldn't learn. It was because I didn't have the money for school. I had to ensure Hero came back. How could I execute my revenge if he wasn't within my sight? Since Hero returned, we had been going to and from school together every day. Although Hero seemed to be working hard, with his desk lamp always on at night, I knew better. He wasn't studying. He was either watching live streams of beautiful women or reading comics. However, this behavior actually earned him even more affection from Mr. Thompson, while I continued to keep a regular routine, going to bed early and waking up early. The knowledge from my previous life was firmly ingrained in my mind. One weekend, Hero suddenly burst out of his room, tears streaming down his face. He rushed to hug Mom's arm tightly, his gaze fixed on Mr. Thompson. Choking on his words, he said, "Dad, Mom, my room is so small. I saw mice, and it's so damp. Could you please let me have another room?" It was obvious that Hero wanted to switch rooms with me, even though Mr. Thompson lived in a mansion. Apart from the master bedroom and my room, which were spacious and sunny, the other rooms were all guest rooms. Mr. Thompson glanced at me hesitantly. Mom immediately made the decision and said to me, "Alex, you know your brother's health hasn't been good. He needs sunlight. Besides, he's been studying so hard lately. It doesn't matter where you sleep, so just let him have the room." Hero gave me a smug smile. I had long since given up hope on Mom. The way she spoke showed that she was accustomed to me always yielding to Hero. I didn't protest. In fact, it gave me a chance to expose Hero's fake effort. So, I nodded obediently. Mom didn't thank me for it. I knew she had already planned this. They were working together to push me out of the house. If Mr. Thompson hadn't initially had a good impression of me and a neutral one of Hero, and if he hadn't given me a second chance after my poor test scores, I would have been replaced by Hero already. But I knew I only had one chance to make a mistake. A businessman's tolerance isn't limitless. Then I led Mom and Mr. Thompson into Hero's room. I casually opened the desk drawer and found a hidden compartment. When I opened it, I found comic books, lots of them, including many rare editions worth thousands. Books that were practically impossible to get without spending a small fortune. As I gasped in surprise, Hero panicked and rushed over, trying to stop me. Perhaps he was so pleased with himself for taking back what he thought was rightfully his that he momentarily forgot about the other things he was hiding. But it was too late. I covered my mouth and said, "Wow, brother, you have so many comic books. I really envy you. All I have are test papers and exercise books, and yet you even have time to read comics. Did you spend all your pocket money on this? Oh my gosh, some of these are even rare editions. I'm so jealous." Mom and Mr. Thompson stood by my side. Surely this was evidence enough, right? The comic books clearly showed signs of being flipped through, and the volume of reading in just 2 months proved that Hero hadn't had time to study. Moreover, Mr. Thompson had recently increased his allowance significantly. Although he was wealthy, he wasn't a fool. That wasn't all. I also noticed Hero's phone charging on the side. Although it was on silent, I could still see Lily, the live streamer, shaking her hips on the screen. So I casually picked up the phone and shook it lightly in front of Mr. Thompson, pretending to be shocked. "Brother, you can't be watching this kind of borderline content. You're still so young, and this kind of vulgar live stream will negatively affect your growth and health." As I spoke, I clicked on the leaderboard and saw Hero's name brightly displayed at number 5. He must have spent at least 50 to 60,000 won on this. Although Mr. Thompson was a bit older, his company was in the internet business, so there was no way he didn't know that Hero was spending money on livestream gifts. I knew that once Hero let his guard down, he wouldn't be able to hide his true nature. It was only a matter of time before he slipped up. What I needed to do was make him relax, to let him think everything was going according to his plan. Otherwise, how could he have exposed his true colors? Hero panicked, quickly grabbing the phone from my hands and glaring at me with malice. Then, in a hurry, he tried to explain to Mr. Thompson, "Dad, you're mistaken. This isn't mine. I was just helping my brother out. The gifts were from him." Such a clumsy performance couldn't fool anyone. But what I didn't expect was that Mom slapped me across the face, stuttering as she scolded me. "How could you let your brother do this for you and then frame him like that? Where would he even get the money?" Maybe Mom had forgotten that when Hero lived in our hometown, she didn't dare give him extra money for fear of angering Mr. Thompson. But since we moved here, she had withheld my allowance and given it all to Hero. Where else could Hero get money if not from her? I covered my stinging cheek and said, feeling wronged, "Mom, I really didn't do anything. I don't even have any pocket money. How could I have money for gifts?" Mr. Thompson grew suspicious and asked Mom for her phone to check the transaction records. Mom hesitated, too guilty to hand it over, but seeing Mr. Thompson's expression change, she finally relented and shakily handed him the phone. Mr. Thompson opened the transaction history and, as expected, saw that the money he had transferred to Mom was almost entirely given to Hero, with only a few hundred given to me as pocket money here and there. I couldn't help but smile faintly, just waiting for the show to unfold. Mr. Thompson threw the phone back to Mom, coldly sneering. Well, well, you're George's real mother, yet you're so biased toward your son. When I heard those words, something inside me cracked. Yes, we're both her sons. So why is she so biased? Is it because I always let Hero have his way? Is it because the crying child always gets the candy? I didn't know. But what I did know was that Mr. Thompson, a complete outsider, was speaking up for me, even though we weren't blood related. He only needed to choose one good foster child, and he still defended me. My heart ached, and without realizing it, tears began to fall. Mom was silent, chastised by Mr. Thompson, who decisively said, I don't see any reason to switch rooms. As for the pocket money, I will personally transfer Alex's share to him from now on. Looking at Mr. Thompson's back, my vision gradually blurred. Although he was a bit older and didn't have children of his own, he truly treated Mom well. In my previous life, even though he had no intention of taking me in, he still left me a room. Maybe it wasn't because he wanted to keep his distance. Perhaps from the beginning, he chose to bring only one child to avoid the kind of scheming and rivalry that was happening now. In my previous life, I couldn't understand this, but now I realized that Mr. Thompson once had a brother, and they had fallen out over an inheritance dispute, severing all ties. So Mr. Thompson was afraid, but I wanted to tell him that some people are born never satisfied and can't appreciate the bond of family. Hero and Mom glared at me harshly, and then Hero angrily shouted, Is this what you wanted, Alex? Let me tell you, I won't back down. You're the one who needs to leave. I didn't respond. There was no point in wasting my breath on someone like Hero. After a month of hard work, the long-awaited college entrance exam finally arrived. Mr. Thompson took a day off and insisted on personally escorting both Hero and me to the exam hall. Before we left, Mom kept reminding Hero about various details, even stuffing some hot buns and eggs into his bag. When it came to me, Mom casually threw a bread roll at me without saying a word. Mr. Thompson seemed to notice my disappointment and immediately had the maid put the breakfast he had prepared for Hero into my bag. The long-lost fatherly love. Even though Mr. Thompson wasn't my biological father, he treated me better than my real one ever had. Before leaving, Mom exchanged a glance with Hero, seemingly communicating something. At first, I didn't understand what was going on, but when I took out my exam registration card, I realized it had been switched. That's when I understood. Mom genuinely wanted me to leave. Even though I could understand her favoritism towards Hero, wanting him to stay with her, I couldn't accept the idea of her sacrificing my future for his. Mom then sent me a message with an unmistakable tone of threat. It read, I'm telling you, write Hero's name on the exam paper. I'm your mother, and I have the right to decide everything for you. Luckily, I had long seen through Mom's true nature, or else I would have been deeply hurt. In my previous life, I had already endured unbearable pain, while she never once considered any way to keep me around. But as soon as Hero played the victim, Mom would instantly surrender. I sent the screenshot to Mr. Thompson. Even though he had already left in the car, upon receiving my message, he immediately turned the car around and returned. He appeared just in time as we were about to enter the exam hall. Mr. Thompson grabbed Hero by the arm and forcefully demanded that he return my exam registration card. Just a second ago, Hero had been smugly whispering in my ear, Alex, you think you can surpass me? Not a chance. I have countless ways to make you leave this house. But now Hero was completely panicking. To avoid upsetting Mr. Thompson, he pretended to be apologetic and said, I'm sorry, Dad. I was careless and mistook the name on the exam card. Mr. Thompson was unmoved and coldly said, The person you should be apologizing to is your brother. Hero was humbled, and Mr. Thompson comforted me. Focus on your exam. Don't stress. I wasn't sure how much genuine affection Mr. Thompson had for me, but in this world, it seemed that genuine feelings weren't so important. What mattered was that I had to give it my all, become a valuable person, and prove I was worthy of staying by his side. I nodded. Just then, the bell rang, and Mr. Thompson left. Hero shot me a venomous glance. During the long wait for the exam results, Mom and Hero were far from peaceful. They either glared at me or threw cold words my way as if it was unforgivable that I didn't swap places with Hero. When the results came out, Hero scored over 500 points, but my score was hidden. Hero proudly skipped in front of Mr. Thompson, saying, "Brother, could it be that your score got canceled because you cheated? What's with you always trying to take shortcuts?" Mom immediately took a jab at Mr. Thompson. "I'm sorry, dear. It's my fault for not teaching Alex properly. I've embarrassed you. I'll make him move out now." Even though Hero scored over 500 points with some extra effort, he could retake the exam and get into Capital University. I said nothing, just quietly watching this mother-son duo show off. Mr. Thompson didn't speak either, but I could feel him observing me, watching to see how I would handle this unforeseen pressure. Perhaps my calmness pleased him as he cleared his throat and coldly laughed. Only high scores would be hidden. "You two really don't get it, do you?" Both Mom and Hero exclaimed in disbelief. "Impossible. Alex always failed before. How could he have a high score?" Mr. Thompson sneered. "Can't you see that Alex is controlling his scores? Every subject is just above the passing line, not 1 point more, not 1 point less. But you, my dear son, are copying others. Do you really think I'm blind?" I hadn't expected Mr. Thompson to be so sharp, completely aware of both Hero's and my situations. I couldn't help but admire him even more. Hero, guilty and anxious, couldn't look Mom in the eye. No matter how much she questioned him, he refused to speak. It wasn't until the phone call from Capital University came through that Mom heard firsthand that I could choose between 2 top universities in the capital. That was when she completely collapsed onto the floor. Mr. Thompson slowly stood up and walked over to Mom. He stood beside her and said, "Let's get a divorce. If we ever have children, I'm afraid you'll only blindly favor Hero." My mother was stunned. The news hit her like a thunderclap. She tightly grabbed Mr. Thompson's pant leg and pleaded, "It won't happen. I swear I won't care about Hero anymore. Please don't divorce me. And Alex is the top scorer, right? He's also my son, and he brought you honor. If you divorce me, Alex won't be by your side to honor you. Wouldn't you have raised him for nothing?" Mr. Thompson's eyes were cold, but his voice was firm as he responded, "I will continue to support Alex." My mother completely lost her strength, and Hero, like a madman, tried to argue with Mr. Thompson. The two of them were immediately thrown out by the bodyguards. Mr. Thompson looked at me with a meaningful gaze and asked, "Do you think I'm being heartless?" I watched them both lose their minds. My eyes grew colder. I replied, "If a person is too greedy, they don't deserve to have everything." My answer was clear, and Mr. Thompson seemed pleased with my response. When I went to school to register, my mother called me, asking me to send her money. She claimed that over the years, Hero had stolen her little savings and spent it all on tipping Lily the streamer. I wasn't surprised by this news at all. It felt like justice being served. I replied indifferently, "You're no longer my mother. Didn't Dad leave you a house? People shouldn't be so greedy."